Ever wondered how attackers can exploit a web application to make requests to other applications? Welcome to the intriguing realm of cybersecurity, where we'll be exploring the concept of SSRF attacks. SSRF, which stands for Server-Side Request Forgery, is a type of cyber attack that malicious actors use to manipulate a server into making unauthorized requests on their behalf. It's a clever and insidious way to bypass security measures, and it's something everyone involved in web development and cybersecurity should understand. In this video, we'll be demystifying the SSRF attack. We'll start by providing a crystal clear overview of what SSRF is all about. From there, we'll guide you through a step-by-step tutorial of how an SSRF attack unfolds in real time. And to wrap things up, we'll give you some practical tips on how to prevent SSRF attacks from happening in the first place. So, buckle up as we dive into the world of SSRF attacks. The first step in mastering SSRF attacks is understanding what they are and how they work. Server-Side Request Forgery, or SSRF, is a web security vulnerability that allows an attacker to induce the server-side application to make HTTP requests to an arbitrary domain of the attacker's choosing. In a typical SSRF scenario, the attacker tricks the application into making a request that it shouldn't. So, how does this work? Well, it all starts when an attacker sends malicious strings of input to the server. This input is designed to exploit poorly secured server configurations, enabling the attacker to manipulate the server into sending unauthorized requests. The danger of SSRF attacks lies in the fact that they can lead to a variety of harmful outcomes. The most benign of these is information disclosure. The server might return sensitive data in its response that should never be visible to an outsider, but the potential damage goes far beyond that. In more severe cases, an SSRF attack can even lead to remote code execution, handing the attacker the keys to the kingdom, so to speak, and allowing them to wreak havoc on the server. SSRF attacks exploit the trust that a server has in itself, turning that trust into a weapon. By understanding the mechanics behind these attacks, we lay the groundwork for learning how to prevent them and protect our systems. Now that we have a basic understanding of SSRF, let's see it in action. Now we move on to the most exciting part of our discussion, a step-by-step tutorial on SSRF attacks. Let's begin with the first step, identifying a potential vulnerability. Every successful SSRF attack starts by identifying a weak spot in the application that can be exploited. This can be any part of the application that interacts with external systems or resources. These could be areas where the application might be making HTTP requests to an external server, or where it's loading an image from a URL provided by the user. It's in these areas where we have the potential to manipulate the application into making a request that it was never intended to make. Next, we need to craft the malicious request. This is where we use our understanding of the application and its vulnerabilities to devise a request that will cause the application to behave in a way that benefits us. The request could be as simple as asking the application to fetch a URL that we control, or it could be more complex, involving manipulation of the application's internal logic. Once we've crafted our malicious request, our next step is to send it to the application. This is the moment of truth. If our understanding of the application and its vulnerabilities is correct, and if we've crafted our request correctly, the application will dutifully carry out our request, opening up a window into its internal workings that we can exploit. But how do we know if our attack has been successful? That's where our next step, analyzing the results, comes in. When the application responds to our request, we need to carefully examine the response to see if it contains any information that we can use. This could be anything from internal IP addresses to error messages that reveal details about the application's internal structure, to data from internal resources that the application has inadvertently exposed. And finally, we take the information we've gleaned from our successful attack and use it to further our goals. Whether that's gaining unauthorized access to sensitive data, manipulating the application's behavior, or simply causing havoc, the world is now our oyster. It's worth noting that SSRF attacks, like any form of hacking, are not a one-size-fits-all approach. Each application is unique, with its own set of vulnerabilities and defenses. What works on one application may not work on another. It's a game of cat and mouse, a constant battle of wits between the attacker and the defender. But with knowledge, creativity, and a bit of luck, a successful SSRF attack can open up a world of possibilities. Remember, the information provided here is for educational purposes only. Responsible use of this knowledge is crucial. It's important to respect the rights and privacy of others, and to always obtain proper authorization before conducting any kind of penetration testing. And there you have it, a successful SSRF attack. But how can we prevent these attacks? Preventing SSRF attacks is as crucial as knowing how to execute them. Now let's dive into some common methods to prevent these attacks. First and foremost, input validation is key. By ensuring that user inputs are sanitized, we can prevent malicious users from exploiting our systems. This means checking that URLs are valid and do not point to any internal resources. Next, limiting HTTP methods is another effective strategy. By restricting the methods to only those that are absolutely necessary for your application, you can reduce the attack surface. For example, if your application doesn't need to use the PUT or delete methods, disabling them can add an extra layer of security. Lastly, firewalling internal services can also help. By placing a firewall between your app and your internal services, you can prevent attackers from reaching these services even if they manage to bypass your other defenses. By implementing these defenses, you can significantly reduce your vulnerability to SSRF attacks. So what have we learned today? We've delved into server-side request forgery or SSRF attacks, understanding their mechanics and the potential havoc they can wreak. We've walked through a step-by-step tutorial on how to perform an SSRF attack, purely for educational purposes, of course. And importantly, we've explored how to prevent these attacks, fortifying your applications against such vulnerabilities. Understanding SSRF attacks is crucial to securing your applications. Remember, knowledge is power, especially when it comes to cybersecurity.